Have you been successful in the RAOA or wholesale business models and are tired of constantly being on the hunt looking for products to sell? Then you are in the right place. It's time to design a lifestyle for you to be your own boss and enjoy everything life has to offer you. Let's get started right now. Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Getting Started with Private Label podcast, episode number 21. Hi, my name is Rob Crin, and today I'm going to share with you an excerpt from my Private Label Leads PLL course about the things to evaluate in order to calculate the budget required for any given product. So, without further ado, here it is. In this module of the Private Label Leads PLL process roadmap, we are on step 3, verify you have the budget. Let's talk about how to calculate the budget required for our private label product idea. What we want to do is we want to estimate the cost to launch the private label product, and we want to estimate the cost for each additional shipment and want to confirm that those numbers support our budget with both of these costs. Let's go over estimations for factory orders and shipments to use for our budget calculations. First thing we want to look at, and we're going to estimate, is the number of days it takes to manufacture and inspect a particular product. We're going to assume 30 days. This number may or may not be accurate, but it's a good estimation as a starting point. As you start moving down the path and deciding to work with the factory, these numbers can be better confirmed, and you can then update these as appropriate once we get better information. But at this point, 30 days is a good ballpark number to use. The next thing we want to estimate is the number of days it takes to ship to Amazon. This number can vary greatly depending on the time of the year that you're doing things, whether it's coming into the fourth quarter, which there'll be a lot more demand, so it may take longer during that time. If you were shipping from, say, China and it's the Chinese New Year, then it may take longer during that time. We've also recently had issues with COVID-19 and the impact of the pandemic and slowing things down for shipping. All of these numbers may influence this number, but 45 days is a good estimate for standard shipping to get from the factory to Amazon. Obviously, if you're doing more of a product being manufactured local to you versus overseas, this number could be different. Or potentially, if you're going to do air shipments or express shipments, this number could be lower. But we're going to use 45 as a estimate for our calculations. We're going to add in 10 days just in case of problems, a little buffer in there. We're also going to assume that for our initial launch, that is going to be 60 days. We talked about the honeymoon period being about 30 days or so, but for our calculations of our initial launch for the number of products we want to have, we're going to use 60 days to have it longer than that shorter window to make sure we have enough inventory. We also are adding an additional 30 days because we don't want to run out of stock. So we want to have excess there because we don't know truly what the sales rate is going to be. So this will give us between rows 4 and 5 a full 90 days of selling inventory on hand. We're going to skip row 6, which is for the number of days for giveaways. So we have to update that if you're going to do that. We're going to assume for this particular example that we are not going to do any giveaways. And then the last one here is the number of sales per day we are targeting. Right now it is 0. We will come back and update this when we start doing some further analysis, and we'll have a more accurate understanding of how many sales per day we can expect. So we're going to come back to this value here shortly. So I hope that gives you a little taste of those items needed to calculate the budget required. If you're interested in getting more information about my course that goes over the private label leads, PLL, process, including how to go more in depth in calculating the budget required, there will be a link in the show notes. Now on to today's action step. For today's action step, just estimate how much money you have budgeted for a private label leads product. You'll need this number as you evaluate product selections to verify if what you're evaluating is within your budget or exceeds it. Thank you so much for joining me today in the Getting Started with Private Label podcast. Next week, I can't wait to connect up again as we go through another episode where we will teach you tangible takeaways that you can apply and take action immediately after listening. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and we will connect up again really soon. Thanks for listening to the Getting Started with Private Label podcast. Get additional information, trainings, and tools at robchrin.com. That's ROBCHRIN.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.